call to order. Norma, can you confirm that we have a quorum? Okay. Do we have any board members signed on remotely?
Not yet. I know that Dr. Benavides was going to try to get on, but he's not on yet.
Okay. All right, before we move on to public comment, I do want to thank everybody for being here at this new time. We typically meet at 5 o'clock. However, based on some of the comments that we've received from the public and the feedback that we've received during public comment period, we wanted to go ahead and make the move to 5:30 to accommodate those members of the public that weren't able to make it at 5 o'clock. So thanks for being here, and I hope the new time is helpful in establishing a better dialogue with the community and allowing for more public participation through public comment. And so with that, we'll move on to our public comment.
Okay. The first one on the list is John Shergold.
Ladies and gentlemen, I haven't been to this magnificent building. I remember the facility that was in the old days. It's been quite a change since when I was here, and it's a really nice place. I got to compliment the PUB for creating such a beautiful location, and I appreciate the fact that I've been here. My name is John Shergold. I've been in this community for, well, probably lived here more than anywhere else, probably for about 27, 30 years now. And it's really been a really great place for me. I've got two small little girls, and, you know, I got a beautiful wife, and I got a good law practice. I'm a civil rights lawyer. I have a business address down on St. Charles Street, 745 East St. Charles Street, and been down there for some time. But, you know, the reason I came down here tonight was there's a lot of my friends are suffering. I noticed that on the agenda 1 and 2, you've got some items on there tonight that I applaud the appointed commissioners to do something, because there is a lot of suffering. I have a lot of friends who come to me and have talked about their electric rates, as you probably know, and most of us here have read and heard on TV. But more importantly, have seen in their bills that come every month. These bills have been coming on a regular basis, like waves in the ocean in the recent hurricane they had in Florida. And what exactly has caused this issue to come to fruition and to come to the point where it is simply because people that are serviced by PUB, they can't handle it anymore, the bills, because they're having to take decisions between cutting their pills in half or paying for their child care, pay for their issues regarding whether or not they're going to be able to get their medicines from their pharmacist, whether or not they're going to be able to take their children, maybe go get an ice cream cone every once in a while, and being able to look at their budget and say, well, I don't have this and I don't have that because I have to pay with this amount for my electricity bill. I know, for example, some friends who was a lady named Irene who told me their bill was $200, that she was keeping track and taking care of her mother, who was 80-some years old, in her house, small apartment. And she told me that her electric rate went from $230 to $180 to almost $400 to $500 a month. I spoke to a nice gentleman that works over at the grocery store, told me that his family income is less than $30,000 a year, but yet he's having to pay now $700 to $800 a month in electric bills. And I can go on and on about people who've come to me and said, you know, do you understand? No, you know, there's a lot of pain and suffering out there right now. And the pain and suffering is something that we shouldn't be having to review and look at when it comes to people having to make their electric bill, because a lot of their electric services have been cut. Now, I don't understand because I understand that we've got what's called a Public Utility Commission. I know that this Public Utility Board doesn't come under that jurisdiction, but maybe it should. Maybe there ought to be some legislation in this next legislative session. And I'm going to go personally up to Austin, and I'm going to talk to my friends up there in the legislature. I'm going to ask them to pass some legislation. And if they don't do it, I may decide to run for state representative the next 2 years. And I may go up there myself and pass it because there really is some legislation to prevent this type of situation from occurring again. My good mentor, Jim Maddox, former Attorney General, said the best disinfectant is the light of day. And I'm glad the newspapers, I'm glad the press is here. I'm glad they're here because they're basically here to put a shed on this. In Aeschylus, you know, Robert F. Kennedy made a speech once when Martin Luther King was assassinated, and he basically quoted Aeschylus. And I think that the pain and suffering that has been going on in this community is brilliantly put by Aeschylus, and Kennedy quoted him as well. In our sleep, pain, which cannot forget, falls drop by drop upon the heart, until in our own despair, against our own will, comes wisdom through the awful grace of God.
Time's up.
We're a better community than this. We want you to protect the interests of the people. The chief law of the people is the good of the people. That's what Cicero said, and it's true then, it's true now, and it's going to be true in the future. And I'm going to keep an eye on everything going on, and I may come out of retirement and run for office if this stuff doesn't stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Survey.
The next person is Dr. Laura Cisneros.
Good afternoon. I would like to address the members of PUB as well as our audience to mention that one of the things we're going to talk about is rates and how it impacts our community. I'm a doctor, and last time I was here, I mentioned that I'm not here for myself, because I may be able to pay the water bill and or the electric utility, like all of you can. But a good 40%, if not more, of the residents cannot. And one of the things I quickly did is I ran for Congress, and I was in the parade, and they put me as the very last car, and it was in Norte de Savino, and here I was in a red Corvette and holding a sign. And I saw all these children, Laura, Laura, they could see this big lettering. And I'm not going to lie to you that I started to cry because I saw them and I said, one of the things we need to do is we need to do better for those children. But then we go around and we raise these rates. I mean, we don't talk about a $5 raise. I wish we had, and maybe think about have a public forum where we just don't stand here and vent, basically, where we can ask questions, because we all have questions that cannot be addressed to whom? To the hotline or the line that, you know, where you wait 2 to 3 hours? It's like, who decided in 2013 or 2012 to increase the CEO and those 2 other fellows' pay scale 40%? In my whole entire life working, I've never had a 40% raise. And what do we get for $1 million? Do they work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday? Or we love to ask those questions. Why did we pay $25 million to consultants? Who decided that we were going to get A and B and C and D to be the consultants, and $25 million? And we found out, and you guys were probably not the ones that were deciding that this was never going to come to be. If the audit didn't come through, guess what? We'd be in the dark. We'd have no clue. A lot of us suspected that something was fishy or call it whatever. But nobody, not the mayor, not the city commission, nobody came to the people and openly say, this is not going to happen, and we plan to remedy it this way. So we do things like build this ostentatious, humongous building. It looks like a mini United Nations. Do we really need that? We all budget our stuff at home. I know I do. And all of you guys should look at the budget as if it was not your money, but the people's money. It is the people's money, right? You agree? It's the people's money. And because it's not coming out of your pocket, it's easy to say, let's build that for $75 million. Y la gente, pues, ni modo. So one of the things they're deciding downtown right now as we speak is rates. And oh, how nice of you all to give us 11% in June. And now they're going to give us another 11%. How nice. You know that you raised the rates 41%, again, before you probably were present. You multiply that for 8 or 10 years, and you're giving us a 22% break now. It's going to be 18 years before we get to just break even, right? So I don't think it cuts it that whoever thought, was it the mayor who said, I'm going to give? So I don't know who made the decision. 22% doesn't cut it at all. It doesn't. You need to do by you meaning the commission, PUB, because one thing I'm going to ask, and then hopefully finish with this, is that moving forward, so you're going to give us 11%. Okay. Well, this June, water was raised 8%, wastewater 9%. Who was a smart, brilliant guy that figured out we needed a Resaca fee? Man, Bronxville's one of the oldest cities in the country, and nobody figured out to add a Resaca fee. Next thing we have is a palm tree fee, because we have a lot of palm trees. And I'm being sarcastic, but you understand where I'm coming from. January 1st, 2023, you're going to raise water 8% and the wastewater 9%, just around the corner, 2 months from now, right? And the Resaca fee is going to $6.25, and on and on and on. So before you know it, you've raised, meaning we'll have 31% raise in water and 36% raise in water waste. We also raised water 20% way back when we raised the other stuff. So come on, guys, giving us 20%. I mean, come on. It's like a drop in the bucket when between now and in 2 years, you're going to raise the stuff another 40, 50%.
Thank you.
There's a lot of people that are hurting. 2 people called me this week that, do I know where they can go live? Because they are losing their homes by the end.
Appreciate the comments. Thank you, Dr. Cisneros.
The next speaker is Kayla Taboada.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good.
My name is Kayla Taboada, and I am a citizen of Brownsville. I basically just, there's so much that we want to say, and there's so much that everybody shares, and I'm in agreement with everything that has been said. And I'm sure you guys know the sentiment that resonated with the public, with the decision that you guys made on putting Mr. Brusiak on leave with pay. That's like you guys literally just laughed at our faces. You know very well that if anybody here would have come even close to that level of theft, would have already been in jail. No questions asked. That person would have already, just immediately. So we're not happy with the decision that you made. He needs to be fired, and not even allowed to come back in the building. We don't understand why he was here after he was put on leave with pay and still allowed to come in here. I mean, what are y'all doing? You want us to trust you? And so you fed us like little crumbs by putting him on leave, but you got to put him with pay. You know that this level of theft doesn't happen in a bubble, and it takes a lot of enablers. You know that, and we know that, and we're not going to stop until that comes out. And so I'm here to ask not only to put Mr. Brusiak, out of his job, but that any board members that are currently in the board that are affiliated, or if you know what you've done, you know what kind of ties you have to the people that were involved in this, to Mr. Brusiak. And we ask you, I ask you, the public asks you to step down from your position, because we're going to be here week after week when you have special meetings. Even if I don't have a babysitter, I'm going to bring my children, because I am very interested in doing the right thing for our community, just like you guys should be. So, it's just mind-boggling that we have to go through this, because like I've said it before in our city commission meeting, like I've said it before here, we should be here for each other, to see our community grow, to be better citizens in this city, not to be letting each other down and letting people be without electricity in their homes. Think about the parents. I have a 10-month-old baby and a 4-year-old. I know you guys have kids. I know you guys have grandchildren. That's not right. It's not right for you to just sit there and act like, well, it's not happening to me, so who cares, everybody else? For your community, you're serving on that board for us. If it wasn't for your community, you wouldn't even have this position. So do the right thing, let him go, give the people their money back, because that's what you're trying to figure out what you're going to do with that money left over. You can start by giving that money back, and we're not going to stop until you guys pay the rest of the money back. And step down from your position, and you know who you are, and we have some people missing, and they need to go. Y'all need to go, because if we're going to work really hard at changing the charter and make things right for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ayala.
Next speaker, it's Linda Macias.
Good evening. My name is Linda Macias. I stand before you as a customer, stakeholder, and concerned citizen. For the last 9 years, we've been paying for the Tenaska project. The project not only stole money from hardworking individuals, but it also robbed the trust that the public had towards politicians and board members. Words can never describe the outrage that the community feels, because representatives should always have the best interests of the people, and that's not happening. Bronzeville Public Utility Board was created to ensure that the people of Bronzeville always had a say-so. For that reason, BPUB belongs to me. It belongs to my brother, my aunt, my grandmother, my daughters, the people who are sitting here, and the people who are watching at home. PUB belongs to everyone in Bronzeville. I wanted to remind you of the benefits of owning a utility board. It includes competitive costs, local control, customer service, economic benefits, and having an appointed board. The benefits listed are expectations that have converted into disappointments. We feel robbed, taken advantage, and lied to. The story continues to repeat itself within our city of corruption and failed projects. However, that won't be the story for long, and we're now educated and aware on what's happening. We are changing the narrative to ensure that future generations no longer suffer because of the poor decisions of others. We will utilize social media to inform ourselves. We will have PUB conversations at home, at work, during fiestas, and at church. Board members, you too can be a part of this change. You also can change the narrative. I'm going to share with you on what the public wants, because I'm not just here to stand and tell you problems. I'm also here to provide solutions, to be constructive. The first thing is we want full reimbursement of whatever monies are left to be able to give back into the accounts of the people. Give them credit for it. 2, an idea should be that distribution should be based on how many years they've been with PUB on the Tenasca project, and there should be tiers on it. For example, since Tenasca was created 9 years ago, then if you've been paying for the last 9 years, you should be in tier 1, which would be full or 100% compensation, and that would be the highest credit added into your utility account. 3, I've read a lot about estimating readings, and so we can try to look into purchasing accurate smart readers instead of just estimating household usage. That would help a lot. I've heard a lot of people share that their bills have gone from $600, but once a PUB employee went to go read the meter, it was reduced by $200 to $300. So let's do what's right. Also, I asked, since there's going to be charter conversations and a committee, we ask that there is no conflict of interest and that current board members on PUB aren't placed on additional boards and that they're not placed on additional as well as the charter committee. For example, the last charter that was created 2 years ago, Mr. Sampaio, you were placed on that board. Right now there is conversation if they will continue, if that term limited has been for that charter. However, we ask that, you yourself won't be placed on there because of conflict of interest, right? Being on 2 places at one is not very, it may not be suitable for the public and the narrative that it sells to us. Lastly, I ask that you do not, the doors have been open with this audit. I understand that there are findings that may not be into everybody's acceptance, but it has for us because we've known about Tenasca, we've questioned about it, and that door is completely open. And so I ask that you allow us to continue going through that door, to continue going through this audit. Don't halt it, don't hide it, don't try to sue it or push back on it, because then that doesn't allow for us to continue doing the hard work that we're doing. I have children. I just came out of work. The individuals that are here, they should be at home cooking dinner, but you know what? They're here fighting and they're standing before you because this is what's important for us. But when you challenge certain ideas, it robs and it continues to rob us from what we're doing and the hard work that we're doing. So please don't do that to us. Enough is enough. And lastly, if you can't grant the public what they want and have zero interest in helping the public, then I suggest that you resign. The position that you've been placed in should be only to represent us and not yourself or any scheme organizers. Thank you so much for your time and for having this meeting. May God continue to bless you.
Thank you, Ms. Macias.
The next speaker is John Clark.
Good afternoon. How's the volume?
You
Little
raise
more.
your microphone, please.
A little taller. Good afternoon. I'm John Clark. I'm a resident of Brownsville and a PUB customer. I'm going to dare to be boring. I'm speaking in regards to agenda item number 2, the establishment of a committee that would coordinate between the city and PUB. I would like to offer some suggestions that be put in place before the committee is created. re the selection of the committee members. Potential members should be screened for conflicts of interest that could affect their decisions. Potential members should also be screened for any appearances of conflicts of interest so that public confidence in the committee is maintained. The membership of the committee should include a range of citizenry. This should include, but not be limited to, members from various economic strata, members who are able to represent a range of medical and environmental concerns, and members who can represent businesses, both large and especially small businesses. The board members should not be selected on a I get mine, you get yours basis from the city commission, but rather through a diversified selection process that would more closely ensure the members would truly be serving the community instead of having allegiance to a commissioner. And someone agrees with me in the audience. A committee that has an expedited process to remove members who are not acting in the public interest. And RE, the duties of the committee should have the authority to recommend ballot referendums. And finally, the committee should investigate the sale of PUB's facilities to the private market where residents would be able to exercise free market choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
That's it.
Okay. Before we move on to items for individual consideration, I do want to thank the members of the public that spoke today. I hope this new time encourages others to attend the meetings and to speak. And I encourage everybody that spoke here today to continue speaking up and continue participating, be it through these meetings or committee meetings or city commission meetings. It's important that you continue to participate so that we can ensure that we're making the best decisions for the community. So thanks again for being here tonight, and your comments are appreciated. Okay, at this time, we will be moving on to items for individual consideration. The first item is the discussion and possible action on proposed uses of fees, rates, and other funds collected to support the now terminated Tenaska project, including proposed uses and/or distribution of the Tenaska Equity Fund. And before we start, we have Mike here today. We've got Jaime, we have Marilyn, and the rest of the staff to answer any questions that may come from the board. The purpose of this item is to initiate, to begin a conversation and a dialogue, not just amongst ourselves as members of the board, but more importantly with the community. We all have our opinions on what should be done with the Tenaska funds. Personally, I believe that the money should be given back. And I think more importantly, what matters isn't what we feel as a board, but what the community feels should be done with this money. We've had this come up multiple times with our public comment, and I think it's important to state what has been stated. This utility does not belong to this board. It does not belong to the city commission. It belongs to the citizens of Brownsville. And the reason this agenda item is on tonight is because our hope as a board is that we can start a dialogue with the community and work together with the community, with the city commission to allow the community and our ratepayers to decide what the best use of these funds are. So with that said, I'll hand it over to Mike. Mike, you've got a couple of things that you want to mention, and then after that, I think it'd be fair to open it up for discussion for the board members.
Yes, Mr. Chair. So good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Mike Perez. I'm the CFO. I'll provide a little bit of a history regarding this item. So in 2014, 2015, and 2016, BPUB set aside $29 million from the bond issuance rate increases with the intent of using these funds to cover the debt service payments during the construction phase of the project. So these funds were deposited into the Capital Improvement Fund where they currently reside. Back on September 16, 2019, where the BPUB board back then approved to deobligate these funds from its intended purpose and therefore make these funds available for other combined system uses in compliance with the provisions of the bond ordinance. So at the September 20th, City of Brownsville Commission work session regarding our electric rates update, the City Commission did raise various concerns and questions about what BPUB could do to provide immediate relief to our customers. So in particular, the question about the use of Tenesca equity to lower the utility bills came up. The City Commission has placed another work session for tomorrow's special meeting in order to provide an update on proposed uses of Tenesca Equity Fund. So with that in mind, the BPUB board could begin discussions tonight on the potential uses of the Tenesca Equity Fund. But before the board starts their discussions, I do want to mention that we do have a bond counsel, Mr. James Hernandez, and our financial advisor, Noe Hinojosa, on the line that could answer any potential questions regarding any legality uses of those funds. So
Thank you, Mike.
turn it back to you.
Great. With that, the floor is open for discussion.
Excuse me, Mike, do you have any preliminary ideas to implement the return of the $29 million to the ratepayers? Are there any initiatives that the staff has talked about?
We've made some presentations in a close meeting to the board regarding the use of the Tenesca as part of the bill reduction program as it's been done in the past. We did provide different funding levels to the board this past Monday again, and there hasn't been a decision made by the board just yet.
Can we show those now? I don't know if there's any reason to hide it.
No, there isn't. I think the purpose of the meeting was beyond showing what has already been presented, was perhaps to open it up.
Open it
we
up
can
and-
listen to other ideas. I think some of the recommendations that have been put on the table by staff, I think are good recommendations. But I think what we've heard, especially in the last 2 weeks, but I think before that, what we've heard from the community is that maybe we should do a better job of listening first. And so I think the idea here is to initiate, again, a conversation and a dialogue with the community through our contacts, through the 500 plus PUB employees that we have out there as ambassadors of the organization, through the city commission, and just directly with the ratepayers so that we can hear not only what has been proposed, but other potential options. I think we need to look at the best way to engage with our ratepayers and the best way to engage with our families and the community, be it workshops or open houses or what's that? Or town meetings. We need to do a better job of listening. I think, and this is open for discussion, right? And so this is just my opinion. But before we start putting proposals on the table, I think what we're hearing from the community is that we need to listen to them first. And so, yeah, I think it's fair to share some of the ideas that have been presented. But I also think that we need to start asking around and looking for the best way to get other ideas on the table so that we can evaluate them all. We can get some feedback and some criticism about the options that are out there. And I think we can also learn from other communities. We should be looking at what other communities have done to return surplus funds to their ratepayers. We should look at what co-ops have done to return funds to their ratepayers. And I don't know if it's done or not, but we should look at investor-owned utilities and see if they've done it. In the case of municipally owned utilities, CPS in San Antonio recently returned $50 million to their community. And so I think there may be examples out there that we can look at. And we can share with the community so that we can get some feedback. And again, criticism is okay as well, before we start making any concrete proposals.
I would just like to add that I think it's important that we move very quickly on this. I don't want to drag this thing out for months and months. I think what that young lady said, the last one that spoke, there has to be a way that PUB administration can identify those ratepayers who were impacted the most during the Tenesca project. It is complicated. I know when you guys see us go back into executive, I just want you guys to know it gets pretty hectic in there too. There's people fighting for you guys, trust me. And we're not sitting there just having a cup of coffee. In fact, we're not having anything. We're trying to figure this out and unravel this, but it is complicated. Ratepayers, those that had accounts for the last 10 years, commercial accounts and so forth. But I, for one, would like to facilitate this as quickly as possible in an orderly fashion so it'll impact those who have been impacted. This is only $29 million. It was a lot more, but this is what's available. And that's my take on it.
Mr. Chair, this is Jude Benavides. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Jude. We can hear you.
Yeah, I'd like to echo your comments. I think that we have a mandate by both public comment and by history of comments, both digital and in person. And the utility board needs to respond to that in good fashion. I also agree with Art. There has to be a mechanism in place in which we can look at a fair and equitable return of these funds in a fashion that is responsible both for the community and for the utility board. I think the staff also needs to be given an opportunity to speak on what the impacts will be of that. But I think that that the onus is on us to respond to the community's wishes and to continue in an expedited fashion in returning whatever portion of funds that we can in a manner that that best suits those most heavily impacted. Just my comments.
Thank you, Jude.
I just got here. I was in a city meeting. What item are we on?
Number one, Mayor.
Okay, thanks.
Sandra, anything to add?
So I want to make sure we don't end this item without making a concrete decision. You know, what are we going to do to engage the community? We all want to, but what's the next step? And let's set a time, let's set a date so that we can drive towards this.
Mike, how long would it take for the administration to come up with a formula or a plan to start returning some of this money back?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, the easiest way for us is if it's going to be returned back to the customer, it'll be through the bill reduction program like we've done in the past, where we lower the fuel rate so that everybody shares equally based on their usage. That's how it was collected, and that's the easiest way to give it back to the customers going forward. Now, having to go back since day one, trying to figure out how much that individual consumed over this period and giving them a credit, that'll be much harder. I mean, there's a lot of customers that are not here anymore from 9 years ago or 8 years ago. And so, the best solution, the easiest way is do it going forward as we've reported on closed session.
Mike, I think you need to put something in writing so the public can understand how we're going to do this. I heard what you're saying right now. And the second part of it, you said it's complicated, but yeah, it is complicated. And we've got here for 10 years of complicated issues. We need to explain in a really solid fashion how the customer is going to be credited. And really, I don't understand, what you just said right now. I do understand it, but it's going to be hard for the public to understand.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we all agree it's going to be complicated.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that we can't work to figure it out. And I think we need to, again, we need to be able to reach out and engage the public and have them weigh in on the best approach. And it may not be, as you mentioned, Mike, the easiest and most straightforward approach. It may take.
We're here to listen, and then we'll follow whatever the board directs us to do. So.
Okay. Well, and as far as concrete decisions, I would say that at the very least, we need to start. We need to figure out the best way to engage, be it with town halls or.
Well, when is our town hall? I think is the question. I mean, so we've heard this is a decent way to engage.
Yeah.
So let's set a time. I mean, and maybe not exactly right now because everybody has to look at their calendars, things get ugly. But let's make the commitment to set a time and make it so people can show up and.
Well, one of the things I would suggest is I think, and Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the city commission has a meeting, it may have had a meeting tonight. I think they have another meeting tomorrow with this item on the agenda or something similar. And I think this is a great opportunity. And as a matter of fact, it speaks to the second item that we have on the agenda today, which is this is a great opportunity to work with the city and listen to them as well and listen to their ideas in terms of how to best engage with the community. How do we listen to the community? And how do we figure out the best way to go forward? And so maybe rather than decide tonight, what we should do is give Jaime and Mike an opportunity to present to the city tomorrow, and then work with item number 2, which is next on the agenda, to sit down with the city and think of the best path forward. So that we can work for the benefit of our citizens and of our ratepayers.
And if I may chime in, Patricio, I'm sorry, I've had 3 meetings. I'm going to have 3 meetings in the next 24 hours, but just left the city meeting. We did approve on the first reading the items regarding the late payments and the disconnection. So the city commission did approve that on first reading. We do have that set tomorrow for our second reading. So we should be passing that tomorrow. We also do have on our agenda, as you mentioned, Mr. Sambayo, an update regarding exactly what we're talking about now, this exact item. So we are expecting a presentation from somebody at PUB at our meeting tomorrow to give us options, or at least discuss the options that are being presented to our board here right now. If I can chime in personally, since I didn't have a chance to participate in the discussion, I really don't know what a public or what a town hall is going to accomplish. I think we all know that the ratepayers and the public wants this money to be returned. I don't think you're going to hear any other opinion at any sort of town hall other than that. That's going to be the overwhelming sentiment. I don't necessarily see that it's necessary to have a town hall or any sort of other discussion, because it's all going to be the same, and we already know. Us not taking action or not making a decision only delays that further. So it's just a matter of how are we going to do it. And my thoughts initially, as I shared with a couple of y'all, was really trying to get as much a return on that money as possible, maybe considering other things we could do to help people get to the root cause of higher bills, such as insulation, weatherization, et cetera. But as time has gone on and we continue to get public feedback and other opinions, I just really think that all of this money should be returned in some manner. How much time, what percentages is for us to decide. Although I would personally like to see at least maybe like a small allocation or a portion of this go into a separate fund to specifically help certain demographic, either low income or certain individuals that maybe are not able, maybe people that are of a certain age that are more at risk of not being able to pay higher bills. So I would personally like to see maybe 4 million or something like that taken aside and maybe put in a separate fund for that purpose. Just my opinion. And then I think the rest should probably go back in the form of credits. I don't like the subsidy on fuel because I think that creates more issues and more confusion as far as what the actual fuel rate is it's being charged. I think a straight up credit per month is probably best rather than supplementing fuel rates, because it's going to get confusing again.
Yep.
And there'll be that shock once it goes back to market rate.
Thank you, Mayor. Those are good comments. I do agree with you in terms of the public sentiment being that this money be given back, and I agree with that, both as a board member and as a BPUB ratepayer. I do think that this money was collected for a project that has now been abandoned, and there's no reason why we should be holding those funds. I think the engagement with the community is not so much about whether the money should be given back or not, but perhaps to discuss the statement that you made after that, right? Which is, how do you go about it? How quickly do you go about it? Do you spread it out over several payments, or do you give it out as one lump sum? Do you give it all, to the ratepayers that are here today, or do you consider some of the ratepayers based on how they contributed in the past? You're right. I agree with setting aside some of that money for low-income families. Absolutely. San Antonio set aside 15%. I think we can do better. Maybe instead of 15, it's 20 or 25 or 50, whatever that number is. I think what's important is that we have communication with the community, with our ratepayers, with the city commission, so that we can get a better understanding of what the expectations are, and how to best serve the owners of the utility, which is the citizens of Brownsville. So those are my thoughts. I guess I should have clarified. You're right. The public engagement may not be very helpful on whether the money is given back or not. I think it's pretty clear. But I think there are a lot of other questions where public input could be very helpful, as well as staff input, and board input and city commission input. And hopefully we can accomplish that rather quickly, or as quickly as possible, so that we can make a prudent decision and we can get the ratepayers and this community the help that they need.
And Mr. Vice Chair, if you're available tomorrow, the City Commission is meeting at 1:15. You can also, if you're available, maybe give some insight also from the board perspective. I can do that, obviously, but if you're available, I'd certainly welcome you at the meeting as well.
Absolutely. I'll be there, Mayor.
Thanks.
This is Jude. Can you hear me again?
We got you, Jude. Yes.
Yeah, I want to echo the mayor's comments that whatever we do, we need again, we need to do it quickly. I agree that a public or a town hall meeting would probably muddle the issue and delay return. We've discussed this very specifically in executive session. I want to speak about it generally. Also, what the mayor said, we need to return this, and it needs to be clearly stipulated in the form of a credit. Because we have been, for many years prior to this, for a few years prior to this, we were in effect returning some of that money through reducing the energy cost. That was not very clear to the consumer, and it is a difficult process to work your way through. And I think whatever we do, it needs to be very, very clearly stipulated in each member's bill what and how often, what amount is being returned to them, and the reason why it is being returned, regardless of what method we decide to do, whether it's a one-time or overpayment or as a percentage of the bill, et cetera.
Thank you, Jude. Any further discussion from the board?
I'm good.
No, I'm good.
Well, I hope, I again encourage the public that's here today, those of you that spoke, to continue participating, continue to speak up. We'll have a meeting, like the mayor said, the city is meeting tomorrow, so there's an opportunity to share thoughts there. I hope that this is, again, the beginning of a dialogue with the community so that we can put these funds back in the pockets of our families and our ratepayers. So, thank you. I think with that, I don't think we need action on this item at this time, and we can move on to item number 2.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 2 is the consideration and possible action to create a special City of Brownsville PUB committee in furtherance of Brownsville, Texas Code of Ordinances, Article 6, Section 4F, which recognizes that collaboration between the Public Utility Board and the City of Brownsville is advantageous and beneficial through the coordination and planning and policy issues for the purposes of the common goals of eliminating duplication of services, creating administrative efficiency, providing for joint service efforts and ensuring quality of service at the lowest cost in terms of both utility rates and tax rates. I mean, I know your name is on this, but I think the idea here was to have you and Mike and Marilyn available for any questions. The reason that this item was put on the agenda, and it is on the agenda, Mayor, I don't know if you guys already have this today or if you have it tomorrow, but the city, it is my understanding that the city is taking up a similar item on their agenda so that we can create a committee that will allow us to have better communication with the city regarding matters such as the ones that we are discussing today. And I think priority number one on the agenda of that committee will be item number one on today's agenda. And so the item is the item is on the agenda for discussion and consideration. At this time, I would open up the floor to any agenda, or sorry, any board member that would like to speak.
If I may, Mr. Chair, just an update from the City Commission. We did appoint 3 members to this committee. It was myself, Commissioner De Los Santos, and Commissioner Cardenas.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
I'm trying to get an understanding, Mayor and Patricia, what is this committee going to look like? And is this committee going to be on a schedule for meetings? And how will this committee's input, or what will the input be to this board or to the city? Do we have a structure on how this might work out?
I think those are things that are yet to be defined, Mr. Rondon. I think the idea here is first to get started by having an entity that would allow us to sit down and have those conversations. In order to do that, we would have to form the committee, and then we could call a meeting to discuss some of those items. And I don't see, I mean, we would have to discuss it with council and I'm guessing with the city attorney, but I'm guessing that we could move relatively quickly in terms of holding a meeting to have those discussions. Because the mayor is a member of both boards, or of the PUB board and of the city commission, his participation on that committee would mean that we have, both committees would essentially have him as a member of the committee. And so that leaves 2 available spots on the city commission side, and 2 available spots on the PUB side, so that at any given moment we wouldn't have a quorum of members for that committee, or for either board, the city commission or the.
We have a timetable on when this is.
I think we can have action tonight on creating the committee, and then we can either have those committee members assigned tonight, or have a discussion and have the chair assign those committee members at a later date, and call a meeting as soon as our council determines that it's correct to do so.
How many committee members are we looking at?
We only 2, 2, and it's 3 including the mayor.
But it would be 2 from the city and 2 from PUB.
It would be 2 commissioners plus the mayor, and it would be 2 board members, PUB board members plus the mayor.
Okay.
So in total, 6, but the mayor counts twice. And so we would have 4 non-mayoral committee members.
Okay.
So I think the first step would be if, I mean, again, to have discussion and to ask those questions, but ultimately a motion to create that committee, and a second to get us to a vote.
I'll make a motion that we create the committee and move forward.
I second it.
Okay, we have a second. All those in favor, please state aye.
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 And those opposed, nay. Ayes have it, that motion carries. And that does it for the items for individual consideration. So next up is a scheduled closed meeting. We have five items on the agenda for closed meeting. The first is meeting with board's legal counsel for advice about contemplated and pending court and administrative litigation and on matters in which the duty of the attorney under Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct conflicts with Chapter 551, including among other matters, the CRI forensic audit report and any new and/or additional information received regarding the audit report and possible retention of professional consultant regarding the audit report. Number two is the deliberations regarding the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment duties, or discipline of the CEO of the Brownsville Public Utility Board. Number three is consideration of duties of interim CEO and possible appointment of interim CEO. Number four is discussion and review of the appointment of a local board counsel and of the qualifications of an appropriate procurement for such services. And number five is the discussion and review of the appointment of a special board counsel and of the qualifications of an appropriate procurement for such services. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to enter into closed session.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it. That motion carries. At this time, we will enter closed meeting.
Yes, that's me.
The open meeting. Number four is discussion and/or request for future agenda items. Mayor, anything on number four? Anything on number four?
Number four, no?
No. All right. Well, then if there's no discussion or request for future agenda items at this time, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Motion carries. 8:58 PM. This meeting is now adjourned. Once again, thank you to everybody for being here this evening. We'll see how this new time works for staff and for the community. And we'll keep you posted on any future meetings when and if they're called up. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Have a good night, guys.